Welcome to another edition of Ancient Tracks. I've got two of the best guys out there in the field on the show, William Lunsford and Stephen Hill. They do investigations together and have a really good experience. I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Will, if you want to start out with your first encounter, and Stephen, you can do the same thing. Just going to put it in your hands and go from there.
Man, thanks for those nice words. I'll start because if Stephen ever gets telling his story, y'all won't want to listen to me. Guys, my name is William Lunsford. I'm from Texarkana, Arkansas. And me and Stephen have been friends for over 30 years and have been friends, and neither of us ever knew that we Bigfoot hunted until about 5 years ago, something like that. Stephen made contact, and boy, the rest has just been, for me, has been history. Wonderful partner to have. Very glad to. And again, with you, Chuck, thank you. I'm a disciple of Chuck's. He was the first podcast I ever listened to, the first one that I ever actually participated in. And of course, if y'all have ever heard any of his stuff, how wonderful it is, man. He's just a good old boots on the ground researcher. Me and Stephen are what you call boots on the ground researchers. We don't sit there and watch videos and or have people send us emails and tell you what it is. We're actually there in the woods a whole lot of the time. And that's exactly how my first encounter happened, except I wasn't Bigfoot hunting. I did not believe in Bigfoot. I lived in the area right there, and we had stories like that there in Texarkana around a place called South State Line. But once you get over there and you don't have anything happen for a while, you dismiss that like I was just being silly. I was raised in a Christian home and taught that monsters didn't exist. And I took that as my mom and dad wouldn't intentionally lie to me for nothing. But we had encounters there that had been reported by people. Even one time when I was a young man there, we had a man named Mr. Otis. He's a black man. He sold the produce. He grew himself, and he would bring it to us on a wagon with being pulled by a mule named Roscoe. So one night, Otis comes down the driveway, and you can hear that mule is just running as fast as he can. Those wheels act like they're about to burn off. So he comes up beating on the door there, and usually very pleasant. This time you could tell he was scared. I opened the door, and I said, "Hey, Mr. Otis." He goes, "Where's Mr. Bob? Where's Mr. Bob?" Bob was my dad. And so I said, "He's here." About that time, my mom walks in. She goes, "Hey, Otis," I said, "How's it going?" He goes, "Where's Mr. Bob?" Says, "He here?" And of course, the intensity in his voice, the fright in his voice, you could tell something was wrong. So she goes in and gets him. Dad comes out. He tells us a story. While he was coming down this road there, it's called Plant Road. It's over there just off of South State Line where we lived. And this Bigfoot had actually jumped up on the road and hollered at him and his mule while they were coming down towards our neighborhood right there. Well, when it did, man, Roscoe took off. And from where he showed us where it started to where Roscoe stopped, it was actually over a mile before Roscoe stopped running. And my dad went with him. My dad went and got his gun. He wanted my dad to get his gun and get behind him with the car and his headlights and drive him back to his house so he could get there safely. So he did. Of course, nothing happened after that right there. But after that right there, we knew that there was something strange about the area we lived in, and that for sure solidified it. But of course, we lost contact with Mr. Otis, and what I understand, he's passed away several years ago. But anyway, so there's a series of gravel pits down there close to where we live, a place called Gifford Hill. And the Hoot Plant Road, and they had actually dug out these gravel pits to use them on the roads and things like that right there. And of course, nature reclaimed them, and they filled up with fish. They filled up with alligators. They had a little bit of everything. And so that was a place where me and my dad would go and fish. Like I said, we had a couple of small ponds on our place there, but we didn't have anything big. But so we would go down there and we would fish. And then after my dad passed away and I got old enough to drive, I would drive down there by myself just every time I had some free time. I was down there one day, and there's a gas line down there. There's a place called 4 Mile Creek. 4 Mile runs there. It's probably a good 400 yards from where I have to park my vehicle. It runs about 25 feet across, and then you step up the bank there, and then you got probably another 120, 130 yards to go before you get on that gas line. On both sides of that gas line, there's some gravel pits. And so I had been there one day. I had gotten out of school early. I was a teacher's aide for my coach, and so I went down there, and whenever I did, I had lost one of my favorite lures. And I didn't it was right as the sun was starting to set. I didn't have time to stay. I'm like, I'll just go back and get that dude later. Sure enough, here I am a little bit of time after that right there. And I parked at a different place this time, right there on the banks of Days Creek. As I go down there to get my bait and everything, I catch a few fish, I get my bait back, I'm walking back down this gas line, and something starts following me. And it's pacing me over there in the woods, and I would stop, and it would stop. And I'd sit there, and I start again. It started again. This time I said, "All right, I know you're over there. You ain't scaring me." And I figured some of my buddies, because I did this all the time. And nobody answered. So as I'm sitting there, I'm listening. Things not moving. So I take off again, walking. Pretty soon it catches up, and it's over there beside me again. I stop. I said, "I know you're over there. You're not scaring me." And again, I was still steadily thinking it's one of my buddies over there, somebody being a stinker, trying to mess up my fishing day. So I thought, I'll fix you. So I got up there and started walking. Then I started jogging just a little bit. Pretty soon this thing is caught up there with me, there by my side. And it's going the same speed. And I stopped. Boy, it took 2 or 3 more steps and it stopped. I'm like, this thing's paying attention to me. And then I got to thinking, I didn't think, never in a minute did I think Bigfoot. I thought maybe bear, maybe coyote, maybe panther, something other like that right there. But I did not think of a Bigfoot. Whenever I'm sitting there and I take off again, I go and then I start running. I thought, I'll fool you. When I start running, I get down to Days Creek. And right as I step into the woods where I have to go to, there's a little ford where I can cross this creek. Well, as soon as I step into those woods and that thing can't see me, girl, man, it just blasts me. It's just, I'm like, oh my gosh. And I knew it wasn't a panther because I'd heard panthers before. But whatever it was, I took off running as fast as I could over there. And I knew whatever, like I said, we have snakes, bobcats, all the other kind of animals that I've already mentioned. Like I said, I knew if whatever this thing was with that kind of volume, I was going to be in real trouble should it catch me. And I get down there, I run across the ford, I get up there, I get back to there where my vehicle's parked, look down this gas line, there's nothing there. And I'm like, man, you dodged a bullet, whatever that was. So again, I wasn't old enough to buy a gun, but I went to a discount store here and bought me a Bowie knife. And I had a Bowie knife and I thought, I'll fix this sucker next time I'm down here. So about a week and a half later, then I'm back down there at this gravel pit. I get a day there to where I can get off from my coach. He's gone somewhere on a recruiting trip. And so he didn't have any papers for me to do grade or anything else like that. So he said, man, if you want to go, just go ahead and go. So I did. I just showed up, checked in so I wouldn't get in trouble at school. And then I was gone. Man, I was set on having a good day. Man, I was right in my element. That's what I did in my spare time. I love to fish and still love to fish. And that was just such a place that had been so special to me. It was the last place that me and my dad had ever fished together before he passed away. So that had a lot of memory to it as well. So I'm down there that day, man. I get to that first gravel pit, man. I catch about 3 pounder just real quick, man. You can't wipe the smile off my face with onions. So then I could go ahead and I cross the creek then and then go on down to where the gas line is and start going down the gas line. Well, that day that I was there about a week and a half before, I had noticed a real bad smell, but that was what really turned me on that there might be something different because I'd never smelled that smell before. Now, like I said, there was always roadkill, fish kill, field kill, whatever you want to call it, that where something would be caught there around the water itself, like the savannah in Africa, that would get caught and then they would leave it and be half eaten and the sun would bake it and it wouldn't have that, it had that good ripe smell. So it wasn't that uncommon to smell something, but that one smell right there was really strong. I dismissed all that once, like I said, I got that Bowie knife when I left and I'm back, next week and a half. Sure enough, I smell that same smell and I thought, oh my gosh, what is that? And again, I'm not thinking anything like Bigfoot. And so I'm walking down there and sure enough, as I get there, there's not even any what's called a swamp jack. We have these big jackrabbits and they'll run in out in front of you and scare you to death, darting in front of you and darting back. So I get down to a place that's called the Crossroads. And I'm fishing all these gravel pits. As I go down there, I get to this place called the Crossroads. And so I got to cross this gas line. And right there, I'm wanting to go to 2 more gravel pits there before I have to leave. It's getting down to be what's called twilight. So as I'm heading down that way right there, I stopped midway in that gas line. I thought, man, something is wrong. Because, man, my neck was vibrating with something. Now, I think now it's probably what's called the infrasound, which Bigfoot can do. But so I'm sitting there, and I'm like, oh, man, it's just your imagination running with you. And I tried to walk again. I stopped, and I thought, no, man, there's something wrong. I stood there for a minute, couldn't figure anything out. Finally, I thought, you sissy, you're just thinking about last week when wherever that thing was that screamed at you. I started to walk, but when I did, over on that left-hand side, there was a shadow. This is just an old road that they used to haul the gravel out and stuff like that. There's a shadow. Well, this shadow begins to move, and then it stands up. And whatever this thing does, it's got a limb in front of its face. It's actually eating the leaves. As soon as the limb gets back to the regular height that it's supposed to be, this thing keeps standing up. So we're talking about probably 7.5 to 8 foot tall. I'm like, oh my gosh. And the first thing I think is naturally it's bear, because there's bears down here. We have not a lot, but we do have bears down here, but they're pretty good size what they are. I thought, man, that ain't no bear. And then I thought, well, maybe that's a sloth. But Arkansas doesn't have any sloths. I knew it wasn't anybody down there in a doggone ghillie suit or any kind of costume trying to scare me like that, because when it was too hot, I done went through those scenarios before, and it just wasn't going to be worth it for them to get down there like that. So sure enough, this thing walks right out in the middle of the road, and I'm looking at something other. I didn't know what it was, but I knew what it was, if that makes any sense. I knew that the legend of Boggy Creek was real at that time. And this thing is like 7.5 to 8 foot tall. Like I said, it looks like a giant gorilla. The nose is flat, the head is coned. And boy, just massive shoulders, big butt and legs and everything. And it's just sitting there just looking at me, just teetering back and forth. to the side like that, and it never takes its eyes off of me. And man, I am crying. I'm hyper praying silently, and I'm sitting there watching this thing, and I'm like, oh man, this is how you're going to die right here. So it sits there and looks at me. Pretty soon he turns and he walks back to the original tree where he was. He pulls down that same limb, and he evidently was left-handed because both times he had used his left hand, even though it would have been probably more convenient for him to use his right hand right where he was, but he used his left hand. So he pulls those limbs over there, and let's say skins, what we call skinning the cat, pulls all the leaves off with his mouth and with his lips. Then he walks back out there in the middle of the road and again starts teetering, and that's when I knew right there, okay, this is it. I said, Lord, just be with my mama, take care of her, let him find my body, you know. So as he's out there looking at me, and he's not growling, he's not waving his arms or anything, but what he's posturing with his look. Don't come down here because this is my area. And he didn't have to worry about that. That was the furthest thing from my mind. Matter of fact, getting further away from him was the closest thing to my mind. But so I'm sitting there and he's rocking back and forth. And like I said, I'm like, he's going to get me because he's giving me that stare down. Finally, he goes to take a step. He takes a step there. And whenever he does, he wheels on that left leg. And then he takes 2 steps and he's off the road. The 3rd step, he's into the woods and I can't hear him anymore. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I wanted to run, but I couldn't run. Like I said, I think that infrasound had me basically, it makes you catatonic. And so I'm basically catatonic. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, run, but I couldn't do it. Finally, my senses started coming back to me. And so when I finally did, I thought I can jump in these gravel pits and try to swim across underwater and get away that way, or just run down this gravel pit and hope I can outrun him. I knew I couldn't do that. But I also thought too, that's going to trigger any kind of predator instinct there is. When you're not thinking straight. So finally I took off running. Like I was going to go to the gravel pit, but anyway, I just kept on running down the road right there. Like I said, I was a miler. I could run a full 45 mile at that time. And so I thought, well, I'll just try to do that right there. I go back there, I make the turn. I jumped across 4 Mile Creek like a steeplechase. It was about 20, 25 feet. Didn't get my feet wet at all. I had to wade that creek on the way down. And so whenever I did, I went there, then I jumped straight up on the bank right there. They eroded away a little bit, jumped up and took off across an open field. And I thought, man, he's going to get me here because I have no place to hide. I get up there then about another 100 and 110 yards, and there's a road that's covered with a canopy of trees. And man, it's really dark in there. I'm like, he's going to get me there. He's going to get me there. Well, still, I keep on going. I get to the gate where I parked my vehicle. I said, I throw my fishing tackle, my knife across the gate, and I dive through the gate. It's made of drill stem pipe. They used to had little triangles in the middle of it, I guess, to re-embrace it. So it had that design in there. I dove through there. Already had my keys out, got out and put my keys in my lock. Open my car door, sit there, man, just wipe my face right quick, start the vehicle and start to take off. I shut the door. I look out there and there's my fishing tackle. And man, I'd never had a great rod and reel like that. I had my knife sitting out there, had my tackle box, and finally I thought, what am I going to do? So I just jumped out right quick, pulled up there to where it was, jumped it there, threw it in my passenger side, and then I took off. Again, I took inventory of myself. About that time, I realized that I'd actually wet my pants, and I was pretty well potty trained by the time I was 17 years old. So it was nothing that I did on purpose. I just think it was infrasound because they can actually control your body functions. If you talk to many people like I have, I've talked to several who said, man, I ended up, wetting myself and had no idea I had done it. That's what this was. Again, my face, man, I just had tears running down my face. Scared to death. I was doing the hyperventilating and sobbing as I cried. I got back to Texarkana then. It's probably about a 15-mile drive at that time. So I got back there to Texarkana and got to the house, ran inside, flopped down in my spinning recliner there. And boy, my mom comes in and she goes, boy, what is wrong with you? I said, Mama, you're not going to believe me. I said, I saw the fat monster. And she just giggled a little bit. And she goes, the fat monster? I said, Mama, I saw the fat monster. And she goes, I know you saw something. You sure it's a fat monster? I said, Mama, I guarantee you. I said, it wasn't a bear. I said, it wasn't a sloth. It wasn't a person. I said, this thing's about 7.5, 8 foot tall and solid black. I said, it looks just like a big gorilla. So I sit there and I give her the whole deal of how everything went out. And she goes, son, she goes, I believe you. She said, but I just don't believe I tell a whole lot of people. Anyway, like I said, I didn't take that good advice. I told a couple of people. When I did, I started getting ridiculed. I had a really bad temper at that time. And it made me mad enough to fight, truly. And these were people that I loved that I expected to believe me. But there's a difference between somebody listening to you and believing you. And they said, man, we know you saw something. We know you're a character. But you did not see the fat monster. I said, oh, I saw the fat monster. So I just shut up. And after that, like I said, I started studying everything I could. And I only had to take 3 classes a day at that time in high school. The rest of the time was spent in the library in what's called a card catalog, trying to find out something about Bigfoot, trying to find some stories about it, things that I could do to be more prepared. But there just wasn't a whole lot like that. Anyway, that's how my first start, my first Bigfoot sighting was. I had another in 1985, about 5 miles from there. And I realized those things were in that area. And then by that time, whenever I went back to start studying, there's a little bit more that you could read about. And so decided right then, if these things are in my area, I'm going to learn something about it. I'm going to have a say so, hopefully, when I have a sighting and what to do. So I did. And the rest is history, because it gripped me. It gripped me like an iron claw, and I had to know more. And so I've been researching in since 1977. And that's, 47 years right now. And like I said, I've met a good partner there in Stephen. As long as it took, he and I'd hook up. And then, like I said, just really intensified my research, able to throw off ideas off each other like that. And very blessed to have that. And some other men that researched with Stephen and I as well. I said, it was blessed to be on Chuck's show there. To other people were having the same things happen to them that was happening to me. And so whenever I got that right there, then I carried it on. Being a UPS man, I go to people's house. Boy, you live so far out here in the woods that Bigfoot don't live out here. It's because it's too far for him to walk. And everybody's like, oh, yeah. And I have one lady say, well, if you think that, you need to be here about dark. And I wasn't going to let her get the jump on me. So I said, I'm afraid of the dark. And she goes, you should be. I'm like, oh, no. So she said, you're welcome to come back anytime you want to. I never did. I didn't quite have the courage at that time. But I knew that the way she said it, there was more to her story than that right there. So again, that's where we were. And then here's where I am. And girl, I love it. I will not. It's a great hobby. I've written 1 book already about Bigfoot. And then I'm in part 2 of a Bigfoot book here. Like I said, not to sit there and brag about any accomplishments that I've had, but I want to make people aware and that they're known that these things are real. My book is 449 pages. It's got about 40 pictures in it, man, probably 150, 160 different encounter reports. Most of them are mine, some are mine, and then some of the people that I talked to there on the UPS route that their stories were so good that I had to include that to verify with some of these other folks here. Folks, here it is. These are just general average people that you meet every day. What I call them Americana people. One lady was a grandma. She always kept her hair pinned up in a bun. She wore an apron all day long. They drank their tea out of mason jars. Just good old, I always smell it had something cooking on the kitchen. And people like that, it was happening to. So that's the reason that I took this up to hopefully try to make people realize they are real, and they are real. So I'm going to turn this over to Stephen now. Like I said, I'll let him have the whole 2 hours of the show after this. Y'all ain't going to want to hear me no more. Go ahead, buddy.
All right. My first one, for me and family, it actually began in 2008. My oldest daughter, she was looking through the blinds in her bedroom window and looking across the highway into the neighbor's yard. They had a nightlight. And she saw something really tall and black come up out of the edge of the tree line. And she said it was tall and it was kind of slim. That it stopped behind the mailbox, and then it looked a little bit, a few seconds, and then it turned and it went back the same way that it came. And of course, she came to mine and her mama's bedroom to get me to have me come look and see what this was. And of course, by the time that I got there, what she had seen was already gone. We live in a small town, but we were in the city limits of town where this took place. And one of the things that really stuck out to me was I asked her how tall it was, and she said the mailbox only came up to about its waist. So that'll give you an idea of the height. And that took place. I didn't give it a whole lot of thought. I'd always had an interest in Bigfoot. I would watch Monster Quest, whatever would come on TV about Bigfoot. Never actually had anything that I ever considered prior to that. And for me, it was in January. It was still getting dark early in the evening, and it was cold. And I was kind of leaving a job I was on the Ed Bank near State Park, and I came down a steep hill and had a hard right and turn at the bottom of it, pure timber in that area, and I could see something moving through the trees. And I wasn't sure what I was looking at. I knew that it wasn't deer. It wasn't anything that I immediately recognized. And I watched. I never stopped moving. I was probably going about 15, maybe 20 miles an hour at the most after coming around that curve. And this thing that I saw moving through the trees, it crossed the road in front of me, and it went up the hill on the other side of the road. And I was, in my mind, I was thinking, I'm still not sure what I saw. When I get up there closer to it, maybe I'll get another look at it. When I got up there to where it crossed the road, I could see up the trees. There was still enough what you could see through, but there wasn't anything there for me to see. That really got me. And of course, the first went to my mind thinking this was just a bear. But I couldn't be satisfied with a bear sighting at that time because it didn't move like a bear. The thing was way too fast. This thing was, it covered somewhere between 80 and 100 yards and somewhere to 3 and 5 seconds. That's how long my sighting lasted. And I'd never seen anything that fast in the woods prior to that. I've hunted most of my life. I hunted a lot with dogs. And I've seen deer whenever they're running for their life in front of a pack of dogs, and they can move fast. But a deer wouldn't stand a chance against what I saw. So that was the thing that really set me in motion. And I went back and forth for several years. Was that really a Bigfoot that I saw, or was it just a bear that was probably able to make the Olympic team out of all the bears? Really is what that may sound. That's my argument. And I went back and forth on it for a long time. I mean, it was probably around 2011 I finally started coming around to thinking, yeah, this is probably what it was. Because during that time, from about 2011, I'd started learning a little bit more about Bigfoot, learning that they did make vocalizations and things like that. And I was hearing some vocalizations, which was probably the thing that got me the most. I'd had several experiences there in town where we lived at that time. Actually, the longest howl I've ever heard in my life. I've always been reluctant to tell people just how long it lasted, but I'm still confident that the call went on for over 25 seconds. It was just a deep howl. And coyotes, they can't last that long.
Yeah.
And I thought about it. I was actually inside my house when I heard this vocalization go off. And what I believe really happened was a chicken litter truck went by. I believe that's what it was, because sometimes they'll take the dual tires off the back of a chicken litter truck, and they'll put one really wide tire back there with deep lugs. And you can hear those things howling coming down the highway before you ever see them. And that went by, and that's what set off that vocalization that morning.
Mm.
And there were also some coyotes that got cranked up during that time as well. But that one distinct howl, that I've never heard another one that matched that one.
How far away was it?
It was very likely it could have been 150 yards or more away. To give you an idea of just how loud it was, and I was inside the house.
Yeah.
This was like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning.
And you didn't know what it was at that time?
No, I just knew that was something I'd never heard before.
That's scary.
Yeah. But I had, and from that time on, I got to noticing with the neighbor's dog, I would, the country boy, even though I was in the city limits, it was still kind of country. I didn't have to worry about my neighbors seeing me if I went outside to relieve myself, mark my territory. So I would notice the neighbors' dogs would start barking, and sometimes they would get coyotes stirred up. And the thing that I really started paying attention to is that sometimes in amongst those coyotes, you would hear something that didn't match up with the coyotes.
Mm.
And that's what really got me going with vocalizations. And I had a lot of things like that took place at that spot. And then during that time, after hearing vocalizations there where I lived at in town, working outside in the woods and going to some areas where there's really not much population of people at all, I would start doing some vocalizations of my own. And I would try to mix what I had heard with some other stuff, maybe what I'd seen on TV.
Yeah.
And I would do that. Sometimes I get coyotes and stuff like that. And in August of 2015, I quit doing calls.
Yeah.
That's when I had one answer me from way too close.
Oh.
And I wasn't sure what I'd said to it.
No, you don't know. Don't know. Chuck, he said, "Hey, why don't you do a call?" My favorite call is from Renee. Yoo-hoo.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Because you don't know what you're saying to them. You have no idea.
Yeah.
I paid $500 if one would have came up to her after that yoo-hoo.
I know, right? I loved that.
She wouldn't be a skeptic no longer.
Yeah. So I don't think she is a skeptic, but I cracked up the first. That was the funniest thing.
Yeah. Well, Kim,
I'm sorry, Steve. I interrupted.
I'll tell you what's worked for William and I when we've been out with women, and the whoop, you do it's a little locator call is what it is. It's just a whoop. But if you can if the women will do that, they can get closer to it than most men can.
Yeah.
So, there you go, Kim.
Not unless I'm locked and loaded.
But yeah, we actually had that happen. William and I, we were is on the banks of the Sulphur River, and there by Alex Smith Park. A couple of years ago, we had our wives were with us, and we had two women from Texas with us. And the ladies from Texas, they would do I asked them to do the whoops, and I asked them to get Lori to do one.
Yep.
And then wait a little bit, and the other lady would do one. And we actually got a response. We got a response. We also saw Ashine.
Yep.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah.
How close did it come in?
What was that? 100? I know it was over 100 yards down the river.
Yep.
But
yep. I don't think he stayed there. I think he eased up on us there pretty soon after that. They want to know what you are. They'll sneak in on you. They are the sneakiest rascals you ever saw. They'll come up there close, and you can hear them just treading real lightly. And then once they've satisfied their curiosity, they just slip off into the woods. And you don't know, number one, you didn't know they's there. Number two, you don't know where they went after that. It's not a fun game whenever haven't got them pinpointed on something like that.
So do you think that 100 yards was a safe distance? Because to me, I would think that there was one drawing attention and the other one sneaking in closer.
Oh, yeah. Most of the time, that's the case. Most of the time, if you get to see one, there's probably at least one or two more there that you're not going to see.
Yeah.
I'm thoroughly
you remember the Jurassic Park? How about the velociraptors there? It's not the one that you're looking at. It's the two that are there with it. That's the case in Bigfoot. Bigfoot is rarely ever by itself. I truly believe that. Unless it's on a road or something like that.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've had sightings. William's had sightings. And most of my sightings, I believe, have actually been juveniles. The young ones that are probably more risk takers than the adults. And most of the time, whenever you see one of them, there's usually at least two or three of them. Yeah. But there's usually an adult somewhere around.
I think those young ones are the most prone to making the mistakes that lets them be seen by us. You know, but then the adults, we got an adult that follows me and Stephen around. I think she has a crush on Stephen. And I have
Stephen, you're not alone. I tell you that.
Oh yeah, I guarantee you. But I think those young ones make that mistakes like that, and then we get to see them as well. But some of them young ones are 7 foot tall. They're not. That's not a full grown Bigfoot to me.
Stephen, I got a question. The one that's liking you, did you cast her footprint?
As Paul Harvey used to say, here's the rest of the story. I was going to cast that track. What was that, an 11-inch track, William? In between your tennis shoe prints.
Yep.
In between William's shoe prints is the 11-inch track. And I found that, on a Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yep.
And we were waiting on the film crew to come up on Saturday. So I didn't cast. I wasn't going to mess it up, and sure enough, they videoed it. It had deteriorated some in those 3 or 4 days that we were waiting on them to get there. But somewhere there's video of that, and we also have pictures of it somewhere.
Stephen, here's the reason why she asked you that question. Go ahead.
Okay, so the one that's got the hots for Chuckles, he casted her footprint. And I said, that was the first mistake you made. That's like putting the ring on the finger.
That's like the Cinderella story when he's going to put that black slipper on that foot. He's ready after that.
Yeah.
Let's don't go there.
somebody's got a foot fetish, they're going to get their hands full with Bigfoot.
She gets mad when girls go up to the cabin. She doesn't like it.
Yeah, Stephen, I will tell you a little bit of the story. When I go to this particular cabin and stay, she ends up showing up. And she jingles the door handle and at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning trying to get into the cabin. And that's happened several times. But if there's another lady that's there, as far as somebody, we went there a couple months ago, and there was a couple of us that were in the cabin, and she did not like the fact that there was another woman in the cabin. And she actually started throwing rocks at the cabin.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, buddy, that's where you're a better man than me, because you said that's happened several times. No, that happens to me once. As when somebody says, "When you jump off the bridge," not again. That would be the same way with me.
Yeah.
Right. That's right.
Yeah, and we have a story like it. We stayed north of Smithfield there one year, and the first night there were 13 rocks that landed on the roof of the cabin.
13 rocks on top of the roof. And
the second night, I think there were 5 or 6. But the funny thing about that was, I was sitting out on the porch with William. What? I think you were asleep. Your back.
Yeah, I had back trouble. That night.
You were asleep in the cabin,
yeah.
And I was sitting on the porch with a guy named Paul, Texas, and we were hearing the rocks hit the cabin, roof of the cabin, which was a tin roof. And part of the rocks that were being thrown, they were thrown too hard to stay on the roof of the cabin. And they would ricochet off the roof, and you could hear them going through the leaves and the trees.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But that was north of Smithfield.
And we sit there, and to go to the restroom, you had to turn your cell phone light on, because we weren't sure where the cabin was. So you turn your cell phone light on, and wherever your cell phone light was, the rocks would land right on top of where you were on that roof.
Oh.
So finally, the last time Mr. Practical Joker there, I'll let him tell you the rest of what he did to me.
Okay. William and I, we put out treats for the Bigfoot, our game camera. Try to put it in front of our game cameras, trying to catch it, making a mistake. So I was just sticking with routine. We had a plot watcher at the back of the cabin, and I put a Snickers on top of the plot watcher. There was a hammock hook by the corner of the cabin at the room where William was staying. So I put a treat on the hammock hook, and I put one down below the hill there. What was it, 20, 25 yards or so from your window? And stuck it up on a tree like 8 feet up on a broke limb.
Yep.
And put another tree at the other end of the cabin where the nightlight stayed on all night. Half of the treats disappeared that night. And the one on the hammock hook by William's window, it was gone the next morning. And down the hill, 25 yards or so on the tree, that one was gone. But the treat on the plot watcher and the one at the other end of the cabin where the nightlight stayed on all night, those hadn't been touched.
So guess who paid me a visit there on my last trip to the restroom? After that, I didn't need to get up and go to the restroom. I about done it in bed, because when I go to lay down in my bed right there, all of a sudden I get, and oh crap! And I'm sitting there, and there is a patio window in my room. There, it's just like a sliding glass door, and it don't have a curtain on it. And I'm like, he's gonna step up there on there, and when he does, I'm gonna smooth that out. Well, there's another lady there named Mary Boland. Chuck knows Mary, and Mary heard the same thing. So when I told that the next morning, I thought they'd say, "Oh man, you're just crazy." Oh no, Mary verified that she heard it too, and Stephen was just laughing. I didn't know about the Snickers outside my window until the next morning.
They were baiting you, William. That's what was going on.
That's exactly right.
They wanted you to have a good sighting.
It's funny we mentioned the ladies because if me and Stephen want to have an encounter, just about if we carry a young lady or woman with us, like I said, we'll generally have an encounter that night of some type right there. They recognize the softer voice. They recognize they're built in the same way, 2 arms, 2 legs, a head and everything, but the softer voice, the different mannerisms, and they'll tend to come in closer like that. Nearly any time I take my wife with me, we'll have some kind of encounter out there. And that's a truism there. It's what I call a classic Bigfoot behavior. They love that, and they love kids. They if there's children out there, they'll sneak up to watch them children. I got several reports when I was a UPS man of people who had seen Bigfoot, and the Bigfoot appeared to be watching their children. Mm-hmm. And that's a scary thought, except as a rule, they don't tend to try to hurt them. Now, there's a story called The Cowman of Copalis Beach up there, and this Bigfoot female, they assume, became obsessed with this young man. Evidently, she had probably lost an offspring. And so this thing would come outside the window and talk to him and make noise. And finally, one night, it actually walked into the house right there. Oh, and yeah. So that's a great story. That was the story that came, that there's something in the woods. Yeah. Yeah. It's Oregon or Washington up there.
Yeah. I've listened to the story before. It was a good one. You know.
Yeah, good story. The thing is, it's not a story. I was telling everybody there not too long ago, I've had the same lawn man for 30 years. And so I was selling my truck. And so he goes, "Why are you selling your truck?" And I said, "Well, I'm out in the woods quite a bit." And I said, "I want to make sure I've got something that's dependable." I said, "I lost confidence in this truck. I'm having a little bit of trouble with it." I said, "I don't need to be out there walking around at night." He goes, "Oh, I know what you're talking about." He said, "You're talking about that big gorilla." And that's exactly what he said. And I said, "Yeah." I said, "How did you know?" He goes, "When I came to America to get my green card, he moved down to Falk. That thing would come up to his window and his door, and it would actually take its hand and motion for his son to come down to the door and window like that."
Oh, that's
happened quite often there. He'll tell you. I saw him today, as a matter of fact, there, and I told him I was going to mention his story there probably tonight. But so they do that. They have that infatuation again with kids and women. And that's one of the strangest things. But like I said, that's classic Bigfoot behavior. But like I said, the good thing is they don't tend to want to hurt them. But we guys that sit there, they recognize us, chuckle, except for that one that's courting Chuck right there. We may be here at Bell sometime.
Okay. We got to stop.
I want to hear the rest of that story. I interrupted you and didn't mean to. I want to hear the rest of that story.
I was going to tell you, the whole kid factor is definitely real. I got a report from a Girl Scout group that they were having a Girl Scout camp at this place, and the night that this happened, a big storm came up, and one of the girls that was there, they had bunk beds and all that kind of stuff there, and one of the girls was scared to death of storms, and so she couldn't go to sleep. And during the night, she sees the door open to the cabin. And at first she thinks it's one of the counselors or something. What happens is there's about an 8 or 9 foot Bigfoot that comes walking through the Girl Scout camp and walks right up to where she's at the bed. And there's a window there. And he walks in between these 2 bunk beds and is looking out the window. He's watching the rain falling. And she just covers up her head and keeps an eye watching this thing. And this thing stayed there for a few minutes, and then it turned around and went right back out the cabin. She made up her mind. She wasn't going to tell us anything about what she had seen that night. When she got up that morning, the girl on the bottom bunk below her, she got up and said, "Did you see what I saw last night?" And both the girls had the sighting of this one Bigfoot walking into the Girl Scout camp and saw him. And so there's something to the kid factor that they're just fascinated. They want to watch. They want to see what the kids do. There's something to it, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I can agree with that wholeheartedly. My oldest daughter, when she had the sighting, she was around 13, 14 years old. When we moved to where I'm at now in 2017, We have a pool, and my youngest daughter was 13 or 14 years old at that time. And my son was 7 years ago, so he was 4. And that's why I believe we were having some of the sightings that I was able to have, because they would go outside and they would play in the pool. They would slap the water, scream, laugh, high-pitched voices. And I really believe that's what drew them in for me.
Stephen even has one that mimics his daughter's whistle for their dog.
Yes.
And, she's a younger lady. She's not 20 yet. She's about 20 now, isn't she, Stephen?
She's 20. Yeah, she'll be 21 in August. So.
Okay. But that thing actually mimics her whistle for the dog, and she walks outside and she tells Stephen, and Stephen hears, and it's just down to a T.
Oh,
you know, so
that was what that was is we had a German boxer at that time, Brindle. She's real pretty, and somehow she got educated on him. I'm not exactly sure how Scratch got educated on the Bigfoot and survived it, but she did. And at that particular time, sometimes at certain times of the year, Scratch would become aggressive to Tank, which is our Yorkie. He's a big Yorkie, but he's been fixed. And so y'all probably put it together. Well, she was probably getting aggressive with him. So there were times we would just put her outside at the edge of the carport on a chain and let her burn off her energy. And that's what happened one night. I'd gone out there to bring her in for the night, and I heard my daughter's whistle on the hill behind the house. And I was trying to describe that whistle. My daughter, she was in the kitchen at the counter doing her homework, and I was trying to tell her the whistle, and she whistled. And that was the exact same whistle I had just heard in the woods.
Wow.
Yeah. And she was inside the house. And that's when I realized that they've probably been spending a lot more time around my place than what I had realized.
So when you're gone, they approach the house more?
Yeah. I've got a picture here of a toe impressions in my driveway. Yeah. I was gone. I had gone to work that morning, and we got rained out, and I come back home, and we were taking some stuff out of the barn, getting rid of it, cleaning up the trash is what we were doing out of the barn there. And I was on a tractor, and I had just happened to look down and see those toe impressions, and I stopped where I was, and I called my wife and my daughter over. I said, y'all come here and look at this. Come here and look at it. And this is in our driveway. William, you know how close my driveway is to my house.
Yep. I told Stephen that was him sleepwalking at night, but I couldn't get him to buy that.
But yeah, it's my wife. She hasn't seen one yet. But now she's heard everything go silent. She was outside cleaning the pool there one time. Me and the kids were in the house. And she came in the house and said, come out here. I want you to listen to this. So I go outside. And I'm listening, and it's, what did you want me to hear? So no, listen to that. There's no noise. No birds, no insects, nothing. It's absolutely silent outside.
That is.
I was out for a minute or so, and everything just starts picking up again.
The first time I went to Stephen's house there, had never been there before. I'm walking around, and I get over there, and I'm looking. Looks like maybe kudzu vine over there. But I went over there to looked like a place there, a trail had come through, and I find a 16.5-inch track in his yard right there the very first day. And I'm like, Stephen, take a look at this right here. And so I was going to make a call, and Stephen said, well, he said, man, I don't call here at my house. It's like they almost had an understanding, that you don't go past this line of demarcation. You don't call. I was going to make a call, and Stephen said, he said, man, I don't call here at my house. It's like almost had an understanding that you don't go past this line of demarcation. You don't call, and then we don't come up here harassing you. But Stephen had a visitor a couple of years ago, had one that actually came up to Leah's car and left his handprints, left his calling card, and then also stole Stephen's deer that he had in a family ice chest. So I'll let him share that. But that is a very interesting story that I always enjoy hearing him tell.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, what it was with the deer, my son-in-law killed a deer for me and put it in an ice chest. And with that, if you don't have time, whatever, to process your deer, Usually I like to leave them in there for 3 or 4 days before I process anyway. Keep draining the water off as it melts and adding ice to it. And that's a way to preserve it and give you a little more time to prepare and get ready to process your harvest. And on that particular one, I had a busy week and I was tired most evenings whenever I was coming in from work. And so I just kept adding ice and keeping an eye on it, draining the water off. And finally on Friday evening, I decided I'm going to go ahead and process today. So I wheeled my ice chest in the house. I've got my cutting board out. I got my grinder out. I've got my knives, my gloves. I reach in my ice chest and I just keep reaching around because there's nothing in my ice chest. I had 2 hams, 2 shoulders in the ice chest, and everything's gone.
Y'all heard of an air fryer? He's got an air grinder. It's going to grind up that air because it was gone. I saw it. So that's a true story.
Yeah, I took pictures of it. You know how the ice will melt and it will form a sheet in the ice chest? That was not broken.
I got a question to ask you two guys. I've been doing this for quite a few years, and I've never, ever felt like I was in any kind of danger until last October. Now, my question to you guys, have you ever had a situation to where you thought that you guys were in some kind of danger out there? And I know you guys got some really good areas that you go and investigate and hunt. And have you ever had a situation where you felt like we got to go or else we're going to be in trouble?
I definitely have. I've had an encounter with a Gugwe, which is a type 3 classic Bigfoot that is a genuine stinker, has got the doggone canine teeth and a real bad attitude. I've had 2 with actual Bigfoot that have gotten aggressive with me, and had another one that probably would have been up there at the place we call Ground Zero, except I pulled both of my pistols out and started walking backwards because I got that uneasy feeling. Like I said, my hair was standing. I was getting vibrations to the trapezius muscles in my neck, and I knew something wasn't right, and I'd never felt that there before. So I left. What you said, Chuck, the most of the ones that I've had, you said October. That tends to be the time of year that if we're going to have an aggressive encounter, it's going to be in October. In the spring, seems like they're mellowed out. Maybe they're taking care of kids or whatever. But October, they're going to have more of an attitude, I think, than they're going to have the rest of the year. But I've experienced that, and I think Stephen has too.
Yeah.
You think October, maybe it's the breeding season?
It could be. Hunting season always kicks in around here. Bow season starts, and then in October, usually sometime in October, you'll have a muzzleloading season. And all the traffic will increase, all these hunting areas, especially in the public areas. Nobody's sitting up when you're driving down a gravel road. I'm sorry, you can hear gravel popping from a mile or 2 miles away. You can hear it. And I think that right there upsets the routine of what their norm was. And I think that could tend to be part of it. You have all this increased traffic and all these new people that are in the area, and now they're having to be more careful about doing what they do.
Around here, me and Stephen tend to research. We're researching public land. Like I said, we don't research his land. Like I said, just basically because the agreement he's made with the Bigfoot there, just don't come around my house and my family. But we research public land everywhere that we go. And I have found this to be true for almost every year that I have been a Bigfoot researcher. When October gets through, like I said, they lock these gates around here. So everything tends to revert back to its, quote, natural state, unquote, to where they can go back there, they can hunt, they don't have to worry about people or anything else like that. But you get about September when they open those gates, these guys start bringing in their doggone deer stands and stuff like that. You've got the four-wheelers, you got the vehicles and everything else like that. And then, of course, most of them are armed. And if people down here in the South, as a rule, if they're going to see something like that, they're going to shoot at. Like I said, look at all the road signs around here. Look at all the shotgun blasts you got right there in the middle. So I think that has a lot to do with it. They realize the people, like Stephen said, they're in their area. These are new people. They're not used to that. Everything was just nice and calm for them. Then all of a sudden they have to worry about what babies they have, if they're doing breeding or whatever it is right there. And it tends to make a difference. I really believe that with all my heart. October, man, I've had really a lot of the questionable encounters there in October. And I think that's it. Whether it's it's breeding or not. Me and Steve have been trying to find that out. We tend to have babies up here where we research at towards the end of December already. So it could be their gestation period could be from the whole year before. Instead of 9 months, could be 12 to 14 months. But I believe that October, boy, they tend to just get really unruly. And a lot of the people that I've talked to, that's one thing I do when I take a sighting. I try to get the time of the year that it is. And sure enough, it will be if we're going to have some kind of aggressive encounter. Most of the time, it's going to be during October like that.
Yeah.
See, I never even thought about it that way. That is interesting. That makes more sense than, because you could breed any time of the year. Most probably, I think gorillas do. I don't think that they have a certain rut season.
And that's just something that we've looked at. There's so many intangibles that can go into a Bigfoot sighting. But if you're really going to study these creatures, like I said, I look, even some of these websites and stuff, or these roles that they have where they take down people's sightings, they list the time of year, where it was and everything. You're going to see that October is a very busy month for Bigfoot sightings as far as that goes.
Yeah. I think the other thing, you finally start getting a break from the heat, usually in October as well.
Yeah.
If I was having to wear a fur coat everywhere during the summertime, I'd have a pretty bad attitude myself.
Yeah, and then these naked apes are bringing in their cars and loud noises and their shotguns. And you'd have my Bambi friend.
Yeah, they actually said, if you could get Bigfoot a Christmas gift, what would you get him? I said, I'd get him a Heart's 9-Day flea collar and a tangle brush. You know, because and heat makes people miserable. Like I said, as a UPS man, you would find 2 times that the people would get just really unruly. It'd be during a full moon time where the moon actually affects their behavior, and it'd be during a time when it's exceptionally hot.
Let me tell you what, I work with children, and the full moon thing is legit.
Yeah.
It is a fact. It's being a hunter and a fisherman. Like I said, I've fished bass tournaments for years, and we go what's called by the lunar tables. A lot of times looking to see when your major feed areas are. And it's a fact. That's solid. And the people, you look at law enforcement, you can ask some of those guys. They have most of their really crazy encounters during that time. They're the full moon. So now the kids, that's got to be the same way, the way it affects them right there. Now, if I get a kid gets too unruly, we have another full moon time. I jerk them drawers down and spank his bitches. But my son's done outgrown me. He can turn me over his knees, so I'm not gonna even go there anymore.
The tables have turned, have they?
I promise you, buddy.
I hear you. What is the areas that you guys hunt? You don't have to specify the areas or anything, but what kind of activity are you guys doing now when you're out researching?
Is as far as us,
yeah.
A lot of times we like to go out and just use the cameras, put treats out, leave the cameras out, see what we can catch, because we've done this long enough that we know in the springtime, especially in the area that we call ground zero, we know in the springtime activity is going to increase, and the multitude of our pictures that we have usually been from February to June in that area. And as far as the rest of the year, it's interesting that I think they move. I think they move on. I think whenever the blackberries come in, the blueberries, all the other vegetation that's out there, I think they move around through their. I believe they have a travel route that they use. Then everything within that area is their territory. And I think in the summertime, whenever all this food is out there available, I think they move through the area and they live good lives. Is my honest opinion on it. So
I think Chuck will agree that what's on as far as Bigfoot goes, what's yours is theirs and what's theirs is theirs. And it's just like, if it's within their area, that's the way they look at it. I took a stick from an X structure one time. That sucker followed me for 200 yards and antagonizing me till I went back and put that X structure back to where it was, and I went to the house because I had taken something that was his and basically shit. I didn't know. I was using that more like a snake stick and something to help me not fall whenever I step in the holes. But boy, I tell you, I know right now for sure.
Don't move anything.
No.
Yeah.
And I also think that if you're in a certain area and you're in that area quite often, they know you.
Oh yeah.
And they know how you act. They know whether or not they're in danger. And obviously for us, thank goodness, they're not in any kind of danger with us.
Yeah, that's the thing. Just with what you're saying there, Chuck, that's how William and I operate. We have a Dogman photo. And the day that we got the picture of the Dogman, we actually had a 45-70 with us that day. We set the gun on the ground so we could take pictures.
Exactly. Yeah, I sent Chuck that picture that Daniel got that when he was behind me, he got intrigued by those hogs that morning at Shannon's place. And so when we're going back down there to work ground zero and we're getting Bigfoot noise, it seems to be a juvenile chattering over to the right. So I'm sitting there looking at over there trying to see what I can see and try to pinpoint. And I've got a 45-70 rifle in my hand. And so Daniel is behind me. And I said, Daniel, while we're here, just take some pictures, take some random pictures, which is a lot of times how we accidentally get a Bigfoot picture. So he's sitting there taking pictures. And I asked him, I said, after a second, I said, we got anything? Sure enough, he starts looking and we just start laughing. Right in front of me, about 50, not even 50 yards, is a Bigfoot standing there leaning out behind a tree. I've got that 45-70 with my arm straight out there by my side, looking to my right. And that Bigfoot is not the least bit worried about me having that 45-70. And I think I sent you that, Chuck, where I've got that chartreuse shirt on and got that orange hat.
Yes.
And about that. There he stands right there. And the crazy part about it was I was so interested in these other Bigfoot over there to my right, I didn't see this one sticking out behind the tree till Daniel showed me the picture.
Yeah.
So tell me about your Gugwe.
Girl, I wasn't really familiar with that right there. I'd heard some of the Indians or Native Americans where you come up. So either way, I don't mean to offend anybody in what language I use, but I'd been hearing about this Gugwe, and the Gugwe is that name translates into what's called face eater. They call them whistling bears. They tend to communicate by whistling. They tend to have 3 toes on their feet. And if you know anything about this Fount monster down here, one of the classic trademark of the Fount monster was 3-toed tracks. I was down there and I had just left Keith Crabtree's spring camp out there. And I want to say it was March the 20th. I think it was March the 3rd, 2020 is what it was. And so whenever I'm leaving, I had seen a tree that had been manipulated into an X over there. And it was just perfect. Both of the major beams, cross beams, had what you call forks at the top. It was perfectly balanced. The length was perfectly the same. And I thought, that's a Bigfoot. I'm going to check that out when I go back. As I went to leave there, I found a Bigfoot track right there in a place called Alex Smith Park. So I casted it. And because it had been so wet, it took longer for it to dry out. I finally get it in there and I'm late for church, but I'm going to try to go by and see where this is. I stop, park on the side of the road, just basically right there in front of it. I go down there and I'm looking at where this X structure is. And of course, it was just like I said, it was a Bigfoot deal. Wasn't any doubt about it. All of a sudden, I look over there, come across this oak flat, and there's something on all fours running through there. And I thought, oh, man, that's a hog coming through. And it was a big one. It would have been a big hog, put it that way. And I'm like, all of a sudden, he gets closer and closer. And I'm like, that's a Bigfoot. So I'm sitting there. I've got my doggone phone out, my little flip phone. I'm sitting there waiting. I've got a 45, a 44 caliber that's back in the truck, but I've got my 40 caliber Glock there with me. So I don't have just that 40 caliber Glock. All of a sudden, whenever he gets up there and he slows down and I look and he looks different than a normal Bigfoot, he's still on all fours walking there back behind me. So I run down there right quick and go by a cedar tree that he had already peeled all the bark off of and everything. And I'm trying to head down there to where I saw him because I'm going to get a picture. I have chased Bigfoot before, as stupid as that sounds. It's one of the spur of the moment things, but I really did. I'm going down to that joker and I look down there and there's a big log that's laying there and it has those spidery roots, those octopus roots there that are sticking up towards the sky. And I look and I can see hiding behind these roots is this big animal. You can see how wide the shoulders are. This one every bit of 4 foot wide. And he's hiding and he's got his head stuck between those octopus roots. And he's just sitting there. He's basically just playing possum like, I'm not paying you any attention at all. And I stop when I do and sit there and looking at him. I took 3 pictures there. I took the first 2 and they were the same pose. When I took the 3rd one, he was looking back over his shoulder. I'm like, oh my gosh, that generally means he's got a hunting partner. So I took that picture right there and I took off back up the hill and I was scared to death because he could have caught me if he wanted me, but he wasn't. He might have caught me running, but he'd have limped all the way back because I was going to give him I've got a 30-shot magazine in that 40 caliber Glock. I guarantee you I was going to get a few into him at least. But anyway, I got back to my truck and looked at the picture and he's got a snout. And like I said, the way he's postured, It's just unreal. I had just thought maybe it was more of a Dogman than anything, but the resemblance was so much more to being a Bigfoot. It wasn't a canine type animal, except for that nose. So I go home and I send it to my me and Stephen have a research partner named Randy Crawford, and Randy's pretty good with computers, and he's got 2 monitors there on his desk. And so I send him to Randy. I said, Randy, look what just happened to me. I go ahead and go to church, thankful that the good Lord has let me live through that encounter, whatever it was. I go to church, I come out and I see him in that picture, and he goes, oh my gosh. He goes, we're gonna have to go down there tomorrow. I said, huh? I said, buddy, I can't do it. I was truly having post-traumatic stress, wasn't I, Stephen? Yeah. And I could not go. And I said, I'm just going to have to wait. I said, all I've got is a 40 Degum caliber, and I'm not going down there in the 40 caliber pistol. So anyway, I didn't know it, but my son had ordered me that 45-70. Well, he brought it over that afternoon. He said, here, Dad. He said, now take this down there with you. So I called Randy, and we went down there next day. We took about 60 pictures from every angle we could to disprove what I had seen, and you couldn't disprove what I had seen because it was there. Mm-hmm. And so when we do, Randy lines them up side by side, and he goes, oh yeah, he's there. I said, you bet he's there. I watched him run up there. So we go down and we find 2 17-inch footprints down there. While we're down there looking at this Gugwe, I find I think it's called a hunting blind. They tend to pile up some of this brush, draping it on some of these trees, and have the vines around it where they can just step out and hunt whatever comes through running down these trails and stuff. So anyway, I'm feeling a lot better. Like I said, we find the tracks, and I'm feeling better since I've got the bigger gun. And I'm basically a no-kill on a Bigfoot. Now, Gugwe, he's not going to have the same courtesy, and neither is a bear. I'm not real high on being bear scat or Gugwe scat as far as that goes. About this scat, they need to get on out and leave me alone. That's the only scat I want from them. But I sit there, and I was very nervous the next day. But I looked at my picture, I said, filtered it up good. And you can see this Gugwe. You see the nose just as plain as he can be. You can see the ears laid back on one of the pictures. You can see the ears standing up on the other 2 pictures. And man, I'm like, oh my gosh! I had been on Duke Sullivan's show, and Duke goes, yeah, man, that's I see the picture in there, and he said, that's a Gugwe. And so I have a friend that's a Native American, and I talked to him. I said, what do you know about Gugwe? Or some people call them Gugwees, and he goes, oh man, he goes, you don't want to mess with that thing. I said, no, I don't want to mess with him. I said, but he came to mess with me, and I told him about him running all fours, and he said, did he look over his shoulder? And I said, yeah, how did you know? He goes, he had a hunting buddy. I said, I thought so. He said, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I was just but I've got some 3-toed tracks down there. There's some pretty crazy tracks from Sulphur River. I've got 3 casted that are in Monster Mart right now. I've got some up there at the area we call Ground Zero too, where Stephen and I research. I've got 3-toed tracks there. Then I've got one, the toes on the end are bulbous. They're almost like, it's a long skinny foot, but they're just almost just like a bulb. And it's actually got a little break on that toe right there. So whatever that is, like I said, I was not happy with it. And I have a friend. There are some people there that have sensitive abilities. And this one lady said, she said, where you and Stephen research, you need to be careful because there's Gugwees up there too. I'm like, oh great, that's what I need to know. I know there's bears. I've seen a bear, but I haven't seen the Gugwe yet. But I think that may have been what it was that day that I said I backed out of there, and told you that would have been my 4th aggressive encounter up there because that thing was not acting right. But a very scary animal. And it's an animal. People say, well, Bigfoot's a person. Maybe Bigfoot's a person or people. Let me tell you what Gugwe's not. Gugwe is something right there that means you harm when you see him. And they say the old rule is if you see Bigfoot, just sit there, he's going to generally just casually stroll on by, everything's fine. They say if you see Gugwe, you start shooting because he generally means you harm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say that to go along with that. There were times at Ground Zero whenever you could be out there and it's no different from being in your living room or being in your yard. Everything's just very nice. Yeah. And there were other times out there, your skin is just about crawling. I remember one night I was out there, I was putting treats out in front of the cameras, and there was a pack of coyotes that wasn't too far from me, about a quarter of a mile maybe. And the first time they went through their little deal there where they were all vocalizing, something in there with a higher pitch than what the coyotes do made a vocalization in there amongst them. And it got my attention because it was different. And the second time it did it, I heard it even better. And the third time it did it, I got back to the truck as quick as I could because my hair was standing up. Mm. Yeah. Exactly what that is, I don't know. I don't know if that's a Gugwe or what exactly that is that was sounding off when the coyotes were. but it had a higher pitch than what coyotes have. And I've heard some of this stuff before. I remember I was working on a Saturday morning. We were servicing equipment. And this would be, I don't know, like 8 miles or 10 miles north of Ground Zero. And there was a creek in that area, and it was dried up. It was just a hole of water here and there, up and down creeks, how they get during the summertime. And for some reason, this is like 7:45 in the morning, the coyotes sounded off. And there was something with a real high pitch vocalization. It made that noise. And those coyotes, they shut up. They never made another sound. And it was funny because my dad looked at me and he said, "What in the world was that?" I said, "Is that one of those things that you tell me out there?" I said, "Yeah, I believe it was."
You know, Kim, and as you interview people, you're going to hear a lot of people tell you the same thing about their interaction with coyotes. You'll hear the coyotes going, then you'll hear something in there that's just not quite coyote, and it's either going to make them shut up or it's going to make them keep going. But the next time it vocalizes, them suckers are going to shut up. I promise you. They realize they've done been admonished. This is my show. I'm singing solo, so you guys leave me alone. And that's true. And I've had 20 people tell me that. Said, "Man, we heard some coyotes. All of a sudden you heard this strange call that was right in there in the middle. And you could tell the difference, man. All of a sudden the coyotes just shut up."
I've also heard that they run together.
We've heard whoops when coyotes, we believe the coyotes are probably running a deer. And in amongst that, you remember that, I think Sid and Stacy, my daughter and one of her friends were with us that night. And the coyotes were running what we believed was a deer, but we were hearing whoops in amongst the coyotes. It's crazy. That sounds.
It's almost like they're a hunting dog, like a bird dog or whatever. I truly believe that too. And saying that, also the picture that Stephen got of the Dogman was actually leading 3 mature Bigfoot up the hill. He was ahead of them. They squatted down. The Dogman just stands there, you know. So everybody's and everybody said, "Oh, they don't interact." No, they do. It was almost like they had some kind of symbiotic relationship there. But I do think that they have that kind of relationship with coyotes, whatever it is, whether or not that they're very alert animals as well. And so they've got that relationship somewhere in there that they depend on each other. And then Stephen found a coyote who had his neck broke way far off the road right there. And that's not done by fleas, whatever it was. It made something mad.
That's right. That's right. And we actually heard that one night. We heard a bunch of coyotes that were starting to yelp. And my opinion is, whatever it's worth, when you start hearing the coyotes yelp like that, they know there's a hunt coming.
Yeah.
And they get excited. They're fixing to get a meal.
Yep.
But at the same point, we've also heard that when this yelping starts, after a little bit of time of them yelping, every now and then you'll hear a yelp where one has actually been killed.
That's right.
And that we've heard that several times out in the woods.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the really interesting thing to me, is it seems as though they have some kind of relationship, but at the same time, twisted coyotes are found all over the place.
So is that Bigfoot or is that the Gugwe? Gugwe. I know I'm not saying that right.
I don't know whether it's Gugwe, or what. Whatever kind of relationship they have with those things right there. But I think it may be Bigfoot. I think sometimes them coyotes overstep their boundaries. I've got 8 dogs here at my house. I can normally go out there and feed them. We don't have any trouble. 8 of them or 7 of them are males. Go out there and don't have any trouble at all. Then every now and then, with that competition for food and a little bit of testosterone mix, and I'll have a fight to break up that you will not believe. And I think that probably happens to those Bigfoot and those coyotes. They just run in there like you watch those jackals or those hyenas on TV doing stuff like that. I said they get admonished, but sometimes that admonishment they get is lethal, because Bigfoot's he's the king of the forest. A bear's not going to beat him. I ain't no way in the world a bear's going to whoop a Bigfoot.
Kim, I sent you the picture of the Dogman and the trackway. And that last picture, it's just that trackway. I zoomed it in so you can see for sure that it is a canine footprint.
I can see the toe pads.
Yeah. And you see how it's basically just 1 foot in front of the other. Similar to how a Bigfoot is when they're running.
How big is the track?
They were about 4.5 inches wide, and they were a little bit longer than they are wide.
And we found one there that appeared to be a little different, and it was about 6 inches wide, and the claws on the outside were just almost like hooks up there, but it was really deep into the sand that we have there, almost like that was a different variety of dogman. And according to what we found and in research, there are different variety of dogman. I think that was probably that other kind that they have right there.
Kim, I'm gonna send you this picture that William was just talking about, and some researchers that we have met from Ohio. They found when we showed them this picture, they said they had found the exact print in Ohio.
Oh,
yes.
Have you guys ever found any like great big huge look like reptilian type tracks anywhere?
I've got a picture of one from a researcher in Oklahoma.
Yep.
Really?
Yep.
Yes. It looks like a giant duck print, basically.
it does.
Yep.
So
Go ahead, Kim. I'm sorry.
what did this?
That's the $20,000 question.
That may be the thing that made our skin crawl.
One thing Stephen and I have learned, we went into this not narrow-minded, but just strictly just to research Bigfoot because we both seen it. I don't want to go all over the country looking for every kind of cryptid there is, but every one of these kind of cryptids there are starting to sneak into our area, and every now and then we're getting some pictures of things we just don't know what in the world they are.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm still looking at this print.
Yeah. So
Did y'all find any other one?
no.
I've got that. Remember that one I've got? We thought it was a handprint, and I cashed it, and it's down at Monster Mart right now, and it looks just like that right there. It's this, and then a lady friend of mine who she lives down around Fort Hood in Texas. We became friends through. She had a Bigfoot following her around when she would walk, and she actually found one, and it looks like a doggone lizard track. It's got like if you've seen the track that they have down there for the Honey Island Swamp Monster, where it's got like the 4 toes, and it's almost like a giant alligator track. It's the very same way in through there.
I let you say that. I do remember that. But were there any other prints there when y'all took that picture? Was this the only print you found?
No, they were not as clear as that one.
Oh, but you did find more.
Yeah, that was the only one that actually landed in bare dirt. There was grass and stuff around. They were not near as easy to identify. The picture would not have done justice anyway.
Those tracks that you're talking about, I knew a guy that did a lot of research around the Big Thicket area, and they found a big, huge track. Said it almost looked like an alligator track. It was huge, but there's no alligators down there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's one thing to go ahead and tell people that, yeah, you've seen a Bigfoot or you believe in Bigfoot or whatever, and then you keep running across this other stuff. Yeah. And it really makes you reluctant to go ahead and keep sharing that other stuff because.
Right.
Yeah.
This almost looks like a 2-headed turtle.
Yeah.
It does. But I'm gonna tell you something else about Bigfoot. Bigfoot will eat an alligator in a heartbeat. Mention alligator. We found one there that we had there at Smith Park. We've been seeing him for 7 years probably. All of a sudden, me and my son went in there, and he was not his normal slide over there. But the grass had grown up, and I saw a trail going through that grass. The creek itself was probably about 4 feet deep. And I kidding with my son. I said, that Bigfoot's done walked across that grass, got that alligator. I wasn't really kidding because that did the first thing that did cross my mind. Girl, we was there about 4 days later in the woods there right across from where this creek was, where the gator slide was. And we found the skeleton, and we found scutes where this Bigfoot had killed this alligator and eaten this alligator. And that skeleton looked like a doggone xylophone. Something had already gotten the skull part up, but we got that. And like I said, we got a patch of scutes and the skin right there beside it. And then I found one also down there at Mercer Bayou that I'm tracking this doggone alligator through there. And all of a sudden you can see the Bigfoot track walk up out of the woods right there. He's behind the alligator. Then all of a sudden the alligator track disappears and the Bigfoot track gets to be about 300 pounds heavier. That's an interesting thing that people don't know, but Bigfoot will eat alligators. And
yeah, look at how much meat's on an alligator.
Yeah, you bet. I go to restaurants every now and then, the alligator myself. I enjoy that myself.
I've done the same thing.
Yeah, nothing wrong with gator if it's cooked right.
No,
We've got a lot of gators around here, a lot of alligators around
Yeah.
here. There ain't no doubt about it. And this place that we researched called Mercer Bayou, I said it used to look like a doggone Tarzan movie. Anytime you went down the river, fixing or the canal there and going down to do some fishing, they'd be coming off the bank. Like I said, you watch on one of them movies there with Johnny Weissmuller. But there's still some. My son saw one up there last year, probably about 14 and a half feet long. And he had one of my friends with him, and they stopped to look at it, and he said, "Okay, I've seen enough. I've seen enough. Get going." Of course, you got to know my son. He's stubborn and he likes looking at stuff like that. So he gave him a little bit more of an alligator tour than what he wanted on that right there. But there,
I imagine so.
And the sound that a gator makes when he's rutting, it sounds like a little miniature. It sounds like a doggone miniature old motorboat there. Then they bow their heads and their tails, and the water comes out of their back on those little squares called scutes. And that's going to be one of my next projects is to go down there next time I get my boat out and to record those gators doing that bellowing, and then go down there to play that around the Bigfoot and see if the big, because it sounds exactly like a Bigfoot. And I bet you a whole week's paycheck that I'm going to get some kind of response out of listening to those alligators. That mimicry, that's one reason that Bigfoot does the mimicry, because to take something by surprise and all of a sudden there it is.
That's a good idea. Yeah. We've witnessed the 400-pound bullfrogs before.
Yeah.
Never thought I would ever hear a Bigfoot do a bullfrog, but it does happen.
Oh, yeah.
Share that with Stephen, because me and Stephen had one night doing the bullfrog on us, didn't we, Stephen? We actually we thought it was frogs. It wasn't frogs. If you would share that story with Stephen and with the listeners here, because that's a great, true, classic Bigfoot behavior right there.
Oh, my story?
Yeah, please.
Okay. My situation is not a very good situation, especially to go Bigfoot hunting, because I'm blind in both of my eyes.
Yeah.
And a buddy of mine, I spend most of my time in the house now because I can't work and I can't drive. And I had a buddy of mine that used to be a researcher with me, and he came by the house one day and said, "We're going out to the woods. You've been in this house way too long." And I was just thrilled. I was ready to go to the woods. And we went to this place. It's a lake, and I'd been there quite a few times, found tracks there, found all kinds of structures there, teepee structures, and just all kinds of stuff there. And so we went out there one afternoon and spent all afternoon out there and looked at some structures that we had found while we were there. And on this lake, the Lake Corps people had put in some boat ramps on the north side of the lake. On the side of the lake is a wildlife refuge area, and that's where we have found a lot of the structures and tracks and stuff. And so we know that's a good area. But what happened when they put the boat ramps in, soon after that, they changed the river channel. And so all the water that used to be there for the boat ramps is not there anymore. It may have 2 to 3 feet of water in that area, but people don't use the boat ramps because they can't get the boats in there. A lot of people kayak through there sometime, but not very often. We had parked right behind one of the boat ramps, and with my situation, it got really dark pretty quick, and I didn't want to be walking around out of the pickup because I was afraid that I'd probably trip and fall and hurt myself even worse. So I ended up staying in the pickup, and I had a audio recorder with earphones, and I had that on, and I used a device. I'm not going to say what it was, because to me, what happened that night was a pretty dangerous situation. And it was the time that probably one of the only times ever that I felt like if we didn't get out of here, we were going to be in trouble. What happened is I used this device once, and I hear these bullfrogs. There's 2 bullfrogs. They were in this water, and I kept hearing them croaking. They started coming closer to us, and I decided that I was going to use this device again. So I did, and the second time that I used it, off in the distance from the boat ramp, about probably 10, 20 feet. Because the water is so shallow there were trees and brush. They had like little islands out there everywhere. And when I use this device the second time, I start hearing, and by this time it's dark. And I put my recorder on the very top of the truck, and I'm sitting there listening to what's going on, and I can hear footsteps coming through the water. And the footsteps were very slow. It would take a step. You could hear the water slosh on the lake when it would take a step. And it took a step and stopped. And then a few minutes later, it would step again. And I kept hearing that. The guy that was with me, he come walking over to the truck, and I said, "Bud, we're in trouble. We're going to have to get out of here pretty quick." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Because they're all around us." I heard the bullfrogs, which sounded like 600-pound bullfrogs. They were croaking. And where this lake is, if there's 2 frogs croaking, there's hundreds of them croaking.
Right.
But it was just 2.
That's right.
And so I was sitting there, I was hearing them, and I was hearing this one that was getting closer and closer to the boat ramp. And I told him, I said, we got to go. And he said, "Why?" And I said, "Because they're all around." He said, "Yeah, I know. I can hear them." And he said, "Let's blow it one more time." And I'm like, "Okay." So I used this device and turned it on and did another call. And when I did the third call, I start hearing footsteps coming from the wood line. And where I was sitting was in the passenger seat, and I was probably 4 to 5 feet from the wood line. At this point, I'm pretty much in panic mode because I know there's one in the woods not very far from me. And I know there's one behind us that's in the water that's coming toward us. And plus I keep hearing these 2 frogs that are getting closer and closer to us. And I'm thinking to myself, we're in trouble. My 6th sense kicked in, and I thought that was stupid of me to do what I did. And we're in danger now. And so I told him, I said, "Dude, I'm serious. We got to go." This was after I used this device for the 3rd time. And he said, "I tell you what I'm going to do." He goes, "I'm going to start the pickup up. I'm going to go down at the end of the boat ramp, and I'm going to turn my 5,000 lumen headlamp on just to see if I can see anything out there by the boat ramp." And so I'm sitting in the truck. I'm still hearing all this. And he walks out toward the end of the boat ramp. And when he walks out to the end of the boat ramp, he sees a Bigfoot that's coming toward the ramp. And he hits it in the face with the spotlight that he has. And when he does, the Bigfoot takes his head and puts his head down toward his chest so he can't see the red eyes anymore. At the same time, when he sees that one, he said it was probably about an 8 or 9 footer. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get out of there.
Yeah.
He starts walking back toward the truck, and when he starts walking back toward the truck, he looks over on my side of the truck, and there's another 8 or 9 footer that's walking down the side of the truck coming toward me. And at that point, I didn't know that was going on, and I reached up and grabbed my recorder and stuck it in the pickup. When I did, this thing growled at me. And when he heard the growl, jumped in the truck, and we took off. But I know if we would have stayed there another probably 2, 3, 5, 4 or 5 minutes, we would have been in a bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my call because I was stupid enough to try this device to see if it worked. And whatever caused it to work, it worked. And I don't know what caused it to work. I don't know what they thought it was or anything like that. And that's why I don't talk about this very much. I definitely won't tell what I used, because my fear is that if I was to tell what I used and told somebody about it, somebody could get killed, and I don't want to be responsible for something like that.
Exactly.
Right.
These things are not teddy bears, folks. You're going to hear these stories about how cute and docile they are. You get the right set of circumstances. That right there, and it doesn't have to be a bunch of circumstances. As you proved right there, you can have one intangible that changes the whole tune of the game right there, and that's what you did with that thing right there. And they can and will hurt you because they're whatever they are. It occurs in their environment and something a conditioned response that they have to that kind of stimulus. And it's not necessarily that they're mean or fixing to kill you, but they're going to kill you. That's all there is to it. There's been a lot of people reported that have been hurt, and especially the guy from the Fountain Monster down here. If y'all remember the Fountain Monster story, a guy named Bobby Ford, man, he's there. I think there's 2 of them from the research I've done down here, which is a bunch with the Fountain Monster. And the ladies are back there at the house. He's going back to the house to take care of them, to make sure that they're safe. And one of them grabs him and just starts beating the snot out of him. Buddy, this guy right here must have been Mike Tyson's twin, because he actually fought his way away from this Bigfoot and crashed to the front door. And then he was there. And then, of course, after that, he had trauma, he had stress, he had scratches, he had cuts. And then he had deals of fainting and passing out. So they had to take him to the hospital. But like I said, it's what they do. You get that right set of stimulus. I don't know whether it was the females that were there that this thing was paying more attention to, but according to the lady who wrote a letter to the Texas County Gazette telling exactly what happened that night, she said she thought that things were after their dog because it walked around the porch, and every room that the dog was in, the Bigfoot would show up there trying to get into that room right there. So again, one stimulus, the dog, but it was enough or the ladies, number 2, enough to change things into a different dynamic. So again, remember that when you do it, because it's most of the time they're going to be docile with you. Don't do nothing stupid. Don't shoot at them or nothing like that. And you're going to have a very good time after doing some researching and get to be around some of these things. But when you do the wrong thing, then you can be made to pay in a hurry.
Absolutely.
Sure can.
You guys know I love you guys. You're a heck of a researchers. And man, I appreciate you guys coming on the show with us tonight. And this is going to be a pretty good episode. It's got a lot of material in it, and people are going to listen to it. And I'm pretty happy with the way this has turned out.
Well, I appreciate it, bud. We love you too, man. We're praying for you for the traumas and the things that you're going through right here. And I've enjoyed this. Hadn't done this with you since I did my first deal, man. And then, like I said, you sent me on my way. Stephen has been there. The reputation you had as a doggone podcaster was second to none. And I enjoy being with you tonight. I enjoy being with Kim. We talked the other night, but this is the first time. We're going to have a good time with Kim. We all get to go out together. I guarantee you.
I was going to say, I need to be on that list of the females that you are taking out.
Well, girl, I'm telling you,
Bump me up.
We're gonna use you as bait.
There you go. 47 years of research I've got, and for what Stephen's had, and you would think that truly I've learned something about him and all them amount of years. I may not know much about anything else. I know bass fishing, I know bodybuilding, and I know Bigfoot, and so we will have a chance to have a good evening out there like that. So I look forward to it, and I want us all to get together. So you'll all get a kick out of Stephen. We go out there, man, in chartreuse shirts. Everybody's out there dressed in camouflage. Me and Stephen out there, and those are we're going to make a synchronized Bigfoot hunting an Olympic event, wearing these chartreuse uniforms out there. Yeah. But they don't care. That picture that I sent to Chuck, I'm standing there in a chartreuse shirt, and there's a Bigfoot standing there looking at me. But I've really enjoyed it, guys. I've looked forward to doing this, and glad, Chuck, that you're back into this, buddy. You're a natural at it. Oh, yeah. And it's been fun. Like I said, you've got some stories too. I love to listen to stories, man. I'd just like to listen you do a podcast. But when we get a chance, guys, I want us to do it. Like I said, me and Stephen will drive to Oklahoma so fast the highway will curl up behind a truck, man. But we'll get
yeah, let us know when you're on the way, and we'll get some goodies to go with us.
Yeah.
Man, thank you for having me on here. Let me thank our veterans and our first responders right quick, if you don't mind, for what they do for us, because like I said, all paid some, but some paid all. Every one of us has somebody in their family that's done that, and I appreciate them so much. I don't take that for granted. You're my heroes. I'm 64 years old, fixing to be 65, and you're still my heroes. I don't care if you're 18 to 81. Our service people have made this country the great country it is that some of these knuckleheads are now trying to ruin. And again, that's something else we should pray about. But again, I want to give my thanks to them for being here, and all the folks that's listening to us. I don't take that for granted, folks. Y'all have got time to spend. anything. And if you chose to spend that time listening to me, I appreciate you greatly. And so I want to express that from the bottom of my heart there.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree 100%.
Yep,
Yeah,
me too.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Kim. Chuck,
Very welcome.
we love you back, man. We're glad to hear from you again. Really glad that you're doing this, man. It's Kim. This has been fun.
I love it. Thank you. I know that y'all have more stories, and I want to hear all about them.
Good. What are y'all doing tomorrow night about this time?
All right, let's do. I'm ready.
Yeah,
Actually,
me too.
that's really good. That works really good for me if you're serious.
It'll work for me. Like I said, we did have a wedding to go to, but now we're not going to end up getting to go to that. So I've got some free time. If you want, anytime you want to talk Bigfoot, man, I'll talk Bigfoot in my sleep. Just let me know. And
Absolutely.
because what we've told y'all tonight, I promise you, is 100% true between Stephen and I. These things are real, and Chuck knows they're real. They're real. Kim, Chuck's character enough to know how real that is, and you're going to get your first sighting. I promise.
I can feel it. I feel their energy. Like I really feel like I just do. I told you that we were down in Red Rock Canyon and we were about to go up on the trail, and I can pinpoint it was to the right. And I'm like, no, we can't. I can't go any further. Like nope, not doing it.
Yep.
And we ended up not going. And then a couple hours later, when we were all going to sleep, there was that owl that turns into the monkey chatter at the very end.
Have we experienced that before, Stephen?
Yeah.
They're on the bridge. Exactly.
And it was coming from the same area where I was like, no, we're not going in there. We're not doing it.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they definitely mimic owls.
Yeah.
And
this turned into a very frustrated monkey.
Yeah, that's one of those 100-pound owls. That's the way you can differentiate.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't happy, but anyway. You guys, I hope we do get to do this soon.
Yeah.
Again.
Please have us back. I mean that with all my heart. I hope that everybody enjoys this episode. And I'll be glad to be with y'all. And I will make time for y'all to be with y'all anytime I can. And so just let us know and get me and Stephen together. He works, but I don't. So I've got more time. But we'll get us together, and I'll make my time available according to his time. And we'll do this again if y'all want to. I really appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
It's a deal. Nice to meet you, Stephen.
The pleasure was mine.
Y'all have a good night.
I appreciate y'all too. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, folks who listen to us.
Yes, sir.
God bless y'all. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.